Great. Hi, Kiran. Thanks for coming in today. Um, what's on your mind?
So I am kind of struggling with smoking right now.
Mhm.
I'm also like divorced and I have three kids. And like my doctor has been like really pushing me to kind of seek support, like counseling support for like my smoking. And I just feel like I just can't quit. Especially right now, I feel like I shouldn't even need to quit because it's the only thing that's kind of helping me. And I've been smoking for like 20 years now.
Mm,
And yeah, it's kind of the only thing that makes me feel good. I just feel
yeah.
like it doesn't matter what I try, I'll never be able to stop.
Mm. I'm hearing that it's really difficult right now with a lot of stressors in your life, and
Mhm.
your physician was encouraging you to quit, but a part of what I'm hearing also that right now it's very difficult to imagine quitting.
Mhm.
Um, do you, how best do you think we should use our time today? What would you want to focus on? I know you mentioned your primary doctor was pushing you to quit smoking, but I'm also here to discuss other aspects that might be important to you as well.
Yeah, I work a very stressful job and I feel like
Mm,
smoking is like really helpful for me, especially like at work too. Like when I get my breaks, it just helps me reset. But I guess like in our sessions here, it would be helpful for me to sort of learn other ways of de-stressing or
mm.
coping. I think, yeah, because like right now it's like the first thing I go to. So if I'm able to sort of learn more ways of coping, it would be helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like there's part of you that may desire to quit smoking, but it also sounds like there's another part of you that wants to incorporate other things that you may be able to do. And
Yeah.
that's a really important insight.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what concerns you most about um, relying on smoking as your primary coping mechanism?
Like, like what kind of like what makes me think I should stop? Like the concerns that I
What makes you think you might want to include other coping skills?
I do like think about my kids a lot too. Like there have
Mm,
been situations where I've smoked in front of them
mm,
and I just looking back I feel really guilty about that because it's like what if like they get asthma or something, like that's my fault. And I just kind of want to be a better mom for them, I
mm.
feel. Yeah.
So it sounds like your family is also really important to you, and
Mhm.
that role model aspect is an aspect that you've been thinking more about lately.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I've never been able to feel like a role model before.
Mm.
Um, and it would just be nice to be that for like my kids at least.
If you were to imagine that it was possible to quit, what might be different for you right now?
Um, like if I were to quit, like what might like life how it might look different right now is kind of what
Oh,
you're.
I'm sorry. Maybe I was a little unclear. If you imagine that it was possible to quit right now, what would have to look different for you in order for it to be possible?
I feel like I just, like all my triggers and things like that, like it's just such a like easy way for me to cope that I feel like I need to replace smoking with something else then that might make it easier. But I just feel like it doesn't matter what I'll try. I just feel like I'll never be able to actually quit at the end.
Hmm. It could be really difficult to quit. On a scale of 0 to 10, around how confident you are that you can quit, how would you rate yourself right now?
Like 10 meaning I can totally
You can
quit.
quit
Yeah.
today and there will be no problems, and 0 being like, that's never ever going to happen.
I would say like right now I feel like I'm at a 3.
Out of 3.
Yeah.
Hmm. So not quite a 0
Mhm.
and not quite a 10. Why did you choose a 3 and not a 5 or 6?
I feel like for 0, I guess like me being here, I guess a part of me doesn't
Mm,
want to quit. So I definitely feel like I'm like 3 around for that reason. Not higher than 3 because I just feel like I don't really have any other good coping strategies. Um, and this is like my main one right now. So it just feels
mhm.
like the most, yeah, if that makes sense.
So you mentioned that you're at a 3 right now, and that smoking has been one of the main coping skills that you're using right now to deal with some of the stresses that come up. Have there been other moments in your life where you've tried quitting?
Yeah, I've definitely tried. I guess I just kind of like fall back into it after a while, especially if like life feels like too much, then I sort of resort back to it. It's just too easy for me to like resort back to it, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a part of your coping skills at the current moment.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's a lot of different stressors right now going on, and quitting sounds like it may be important for you. But I want to ask you, how do you view quitting smoking right now?
Um, I definitely see it as something that seems like very hard, especially because like even my job is stressful and I just yeah, it's just like it's I view it as a pretty difficult thing because it's one of my very top coping mechanisms. And so that's why it feels like no matter what I try, I just like won't be able to stop.
It can be really difficult to even imagine
Mhm.
that aspect of stopping, let alone sometimes not knowing how
Mhm.
to go about that. So, can you tell me a little bit more about you mentioned that you have some triggers when you get stressed. Can you tell
Yeah.
me a little bit more about what are the first thoughts that come up to your mind when you have a stress trigger?
Yeah, like if I'm for example, if I just have had a really rough day at work, my like feeling like I just think, okay, I need an escape. That's kind of one of the first thoughts that come to my head. Like, okay,
Mm,
I need an escape, and then the smoking sort of gives me that feeling that I got to like kind of mentally check out from the stress in that moment, if that makes sense.
mm. Getting
Yeah.
that momentary relief is
Yeah.
really important. In the times that you've attempted to quit before, what were some of those replacements that you mentioned seeking out?
Like definitely working out
Mm,
helps. Like if I just focus on like my physical skills, like just like, going for a run, that kind of allows me to sort of put my mind towards that activity. That's kind of worked out, but I guess I fall behind when I'm too lazy to sort of even just like
mm.
get out of bed. But yeah, working out I say has kind of helped. Yeah.
This may or may not be helpful for you, but some clients I've worked with in the past have found it helpful to talk specifically about their goals and maybe the different strategies they may use to achieve that. I'm wondering if we can do that now, if you're interested in discussing a plan to approach quitting.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Well, I'm glad you're open to working on some goals with me today. If it's okay, I have a template that I use with clients just to organize some of the thoughts and maybe some of the directions that you're thinking about going in. Is it okay if I share my screen right now?
Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever heard of SMART goals?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay, so I use them pretty loosely as well, so we can change it or add to it if we want to. But what have you used SMART goals for in the past?
Just things like sort of working on like like figuring out my career goals, and I use a lot of
Mhm.
them back in like university. It's been some time, but I for
Mhm.
sure find it helpful.
Okay. Yeah, and so I'm glad you have a little bit of familiarity with it, and if it's okay, I can write down some of our answers together and email it to you after our session, just so you have this with you, and you might even want to use it in case you end up speaking with your physician again, and it can just be something that can be edited and developed over time as well. So it has a lot of different aspects.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
So for the first part, a specific goal that you're thinking of, what directions would you like to move in first?
I think it's important for me to first just recognize my triggers for smoking. So just identifying like people or places or situations that trigger me to smoke can be will be helpful.
So you said recognizing triggers for smoking, people, places, and what was the last one?
Situations.
Okay, and situations.
Mhm.
Are there any that come up to mind just at the moment?
Yeah, like work. When work gets a little bit stressful, I think it'll be helpful to really identify what aspects of work and who at work sort of
Mhm.
triggers the feeling.
Okay. And is there anything else that you would want me to add under the goals, recognize triggers for smoking?
Um, I think for now, before it gets too overwhelming, I think I'll right now focus on work because I do work like 40 hours a week and most of my
Mm,
time is there. So I think for now, yeah, I think I'll focus on work triggers. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, fair enough. That is a pretty big area as well, especially since you're working so much.
Yeah.
So this is an area that some people might hesitate, right?
Mhm.
And I just want to let you know, as far as measurable, this is how you define the measurements, right? So there's no like specific way to measure this goal, but in your own mind, how would you measure recognizing triggers for smoking?
I think for me, it'll be helpful to write them down. Like I do like
Okay,
journaling. I've
so
always,
writing and journaling.
yeah.
Is there any specific things that you would write down? Like, I felt triggered to smoke today, or might you count how many times, or is there a
Yeah.
different way that you would write this?
Yeah, I think I would like if I can't keep my journal on me all the time, maybe using like notes on my phone and just sort of writing down the date and sort of the moment I felt triggered. Like I'm triggered right now because my coworker said this to me, or because I have to like go do write this whole draft for my boss on a short notice. So things like that, just in the moment, writing them down.
So maybe an example would be today at let's say 12 p.m. coworker or boss, right? Like just naming the person and then maybe putting the situation, and
Yeah.
of course writing it in however makes the most sense for you. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
just a date, time, person, place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would want to add to measuring this goal? How would
Um,
you know when you succeed in writing down, or how would you know when you succeed in recognizing?
I think if I've like allowed myself to become aware of it and have put it onto like paper or pen, because in the past I've avoided doing that. Like I've just sort of
Mhm.
went and out for and just had my smoke break without really acknowledging what led me to that. So I think now moving forward, if I truly just take the 10 seconds to just be like, okay, this is a trigger, and I've written it down, I think for me that'll be helpful enough to know that I'm sort of making progress in that way.
May I suggest something?
Mhm.
Sometimes it could be helpful just noting the time that you're smoking.
Mm.
And because sometimes it can be hard to recognize at the moment that somebody triggered you, or maybe later on in the day, you're like, oh, yeah, that was very stressful.
Mm.
Um, would you be open to writing down maybe the times or uh, places that you go for your smoke breaks?
Yeah, yeah, I think that will actually be quite helpful. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just labeling it a smoke break. So
Yeah.
that way, when you go back into your journal, you can be like, oh, yeah, I took less smoke breaks today, or I took
Mm.
more smoke breaks today, or it didn't really change. Um, and then maybe you'll be able to see like the connections um,
Mm.
between some of
Yeah.
the other examples.
Mhm.
Um, so is this how is will you attain this goal? And just it's another area that might trip people up sometimes, that just attainable means that achieved in a specific amount of time and that are reasonable. So what would be the time frame that you would give for yourself?
I think over the course of the next 2 weeks, if I'm able to, like today, like, yeah, so, I'll be back at work tomorrow, and then over the course of the next 2 weeks, if I'm able to write down my smoke breaks and times, I think that'll give me a quite a clear, consistent sort of understanding of how often I am smoking and what's triggering it.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely a 2 week time frame could be very attainable. I do want to ask because sometimes it can almost feel like, oh, I didn't write down every single time. How
Mm.
many times in your journal or on your phone do you think is reasonable to record your smoking?
Um, like, do you mean like how often I see
Yeah,
myself recording
yeah.
it?
For example, in the 2 weeks, like how often do you see yourself like recording the triggers
Mm.
or the smoke breaks or maybe the situations that uh, create that feeling?
Hmm. Quite a few times, to be honest. Because I do go like every hour or two for a smoke break.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think I'll just, if I just have my notes app open, just writing down the times I go, there might be like a couple of times that I find myself, I think I'll be writing down.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is there any way that like a reminder to
Mm.
write this down, or other techniques that you would think might be helpful just to start the process of writing?
Hmm. Yeah, I think a reminder is a good idea. I didn't think of that, but I think if I set like an intention before I start my work shift and sort of put a reminders on my phone, that force me to hold myself accountable for when I'm like supposed to be writing it down. I think that will be helpful.
Yeah,
I might.
and oh, I'm sorry.
I know. I was just gonna say I might even maybe wear like sort of a rubber band on my wrist, because I think like if I see something that's new, and like it'll can serve as a reminder that like I'm just remembering something I used to use when I would struggle with like other things like food addiction, stuff like that.
Mm,
Um, so maybe like a physical reminder on me, like on my wrist, like a rubber band, like, or a bracelet, like, okay, that I can start wearing when I'm working on these goals, if that makes sense.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes visual markers can be very helpful.
Yeah.
If it's okay, may I ask, like, or suggest something as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would it be possible to put a visual marker or some kind of like a rubber band on your lighter or your pack of cigarettes that you use to
Yeah.
add to just reinforce the understanding, okay, this rubber band represents my conscious movement to understanding what's triggering me to smoke right now.
Yeah, I think that's actually really helpful. Yeah, I can do that instead, I think, of my wrist. Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes I know for other folks I've talked to, it can be like almost automatic, like
Mm,
smoking, or you're just like, okay, yeah, I'm going for a break or on their way to do something, and they might have even forgot, like,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah, I
the
think
the
it's better.
feeling to.
Yeah, you're right. I think it would be better if I have a visual reminder on the sort of like cigarette pack or like the lighter, because that way I will be forced to look at that when I'm actually smoking. Yeah.
And in the next 2 weeks, how many notes do you want to write for yourself? Like, if you had to say, like, what's a reasonable amount of recordings around your triggers that is accessible to you?
I honestly don't know because like I feel like in the past I've been just smoking whenever I feel like
Mhm.
that I want to use this opportunity to even see how often I smoke because
Mm.
I don't even know because it's just so automatic and so habitual. Um yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah, I think that it can, quitting smoking is really difficult for so many reasons, and this aspect of how much am I smoking, why am I smoking, what is triggering me, can add to all of it.
Mhm.
Um, Something that could be helpful, if I could suggest, is just starting low.
Mhm.
Not overtaxing yourself with I have to record every single smoke break I take or every single feeling I have, because that might work for one day, and then you
Yeah.
might get caught up with taking care of your family or
Mhm.
work responsibilities, and that can be like, oh, I have another thing that's stressing me out. I have to record
Mhm.
this. Would it be helpful to maybe make a scale of uh, an ideal number and then like the lower end number? So maybe like record 6 notes in one week as the high end number, and then what would you set as like the low end number for recording notes for the week?
I think the low end number maybe 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe record 2 to 6 notes
Yeah.
a week. Yeah, because it that gives you a little bit more flexibility. It's like, okay, I did it today, and then life catches up, and you might not
Mhm.
remember to do it the next day, and then you can remind yourself, okay, I hit my goal, but now I can continue moving to the higher number if I want to, or if I remember to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's helpful.
Yeah, so if it's okay, we can move on to the other two aspects of this goal. Sometimes they're a little bit more uh, cut and dry.
Mhm.
Um, so, what other tasks or projects could you incorporate to support you in just being aware of your triggers around smoking?
Like besides note taking and identifying.
Yeah, so like what other aspects of the things that you're currently doing, how would this goal fold into that? So, for example, if you're working towards something at work, how might this goal support that work goal, and how would that work goal support this goal? It's kind of like connecting two different
Mhm.
things to reinforce each other.
Yeah, so I think if I like stop if I like lower the amount of times I take smoke breaks, I will have like more time to do my actual work as well. If that makes sense? Yeah, and
Yeah, like lowers less time, maybe less time on smoke breaks. to increase time to complete work. Does that
Yeah.
is that in line with what you were saying?
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. Yeah. And I also like sometimes I have to work with moms and kids, and
Hmm.
I refrain myself, like I sort of like have to schedule my time differently when I just come back from smoking because I'm scared that like they'll smell it on me, or, like the kids, right? So I think if I have less smoke breaks, I can actually manage my time more wisely. Like I can actually
Mm.
meet with specific clients when they are available rather than me aligning things with my smoking, if that makes sense.
Maybe freeing up time to spend not smoking,
Hmm.
if that is in line with what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, the purpose of writing this down is not like this is exactly what you need to do, but rather a guiding point. So if at any point, the next day or hour, you feel like this doesn't capture something, please feel free to add to it, delete stuff, and I would always encourage you to share it back with me if you would like to.
Mhm. Yeah, no, thank
Um,
you so much.
of course, yeah. And so the last one is really just um, when do you want to have um, this goal of recognizing your triggers complete? So that can kind of sound counterintuitive because that might be an ongoing process of recognizing and learning and adapting. But the way I see this aspect of a more open-ended goal is when do you see yourself um, kind of wanting to make like a progress check-in?
Hmm. I think by the 2 week mark, maybe 3 weeks, I'll have a good visual of like how often sort of I am and like what my triggers have been the past 2, 3 weeks. Yeah, so by I think I would say like 2 to 3 weeks, that's when I can sort of check in about what I have learned about myself and my triggers.
Okay. So maybe I'll if it's okay to put the higher
Yeah.
number for 3 weeks just to give you that extra time in case other stressors come up or other aspects or things take your attention.
Yeah, I think that'll be helpful.
And out of the 3 weeks, what kind of progress are you hoping to make on this goal? Are you seeking to have specific triggers identified? Are you seeking to have less time spent smoking? Or is it somewhere or something else?
I think if like I'm seeking to sort of see what all my triggers are by this time period. Um to because I tend to generalize a lot, like, oh, everybody at work stresses me out, or I
Mm,
hate my job. But I think breaking down that thought will be helpful. Yes.
and I like what you said, breaking down those thoughts. That can
Yeah.
be a work in progress, definitely.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so definitely having formed a list, and a list can also be one item too. I would definitely encourage you to think through different ideas that come up, even if it doesn't resonate with you as like that doesn't seem like a trigger. It might be helpful just to write that down, right? Even if you put a question mark next to it or scratch it out, um, just to generate some ideas, because it does sound like you're in this exploratory phase of really
Yeah.
taking that on.
Mhm.
And Kiran, I want to say quitting smoking is very difficult. So I do really appreciate the effort and drive you're bringing into this. I know your physician was also encouraging you, but I do see you here showing up for yourself today and for your family. And I really do thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this has been really helpful, I think, moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah. Speaking about moving forward, I just wanted to wrap up because I'm mindful of time today. What are some of the things you want to do after this session?
Like over the course of the next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll probably get started right away on these lists and sort of, I can already feel myself like, okay, like wanting to go for like a little smoking session. So I think sort of recognizing like, yeah, like what's gonna be triggering me if like, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question properly.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely does. And, you know, just to kind of wrap up, how are you feeling right now, given everything we planned out and everything we discussed today?
I do feel hopeful. I think, with my doctor, it just felt very black and white, like quitting,
Mhm.
not quitting. But here I feel like I can move through the process and go at my own pace. So I do feel a little bit more like in control of my um quitting process, if that makes sense. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, and again, I'm here to listen and plan with you. I will send you this after we log off today, and yeah, and we can reschedule for next week just to discuss maybe so if there's other goals
Mhm.
that you want to add to this or things that you might want to change.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I will see you next week.
All right, bye.